Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. It must be that time of year again because I've coerced my wife to participate in talking about our favorite games of this year again.
Yeah, and it's been a great year. I mean, it's been our first year of having a toddler for the entire year, and yet we've still managed to play a lot of games. So we're really excited to talk all about them.
So if you want to know more about our favorite games from this year, then might I suggest... Hi, I'm Alex.
And I'm Liz.
From Might I Suggest a Game, a channel devoted to helping you find your perfect board game. Like we mentioned before, we're going to be talking about some of our favorite games this year, but if you watch our video from last year, you'll know that we don't usually use the regular categories that everyone else does.
Top 10 lists are fine, but we like to spice it up a little bit. So we've created our own categories, such as your top table hogger,
top game off the back of the shelf,
the game you want to take on a second date,
top new game in our collection,
and best game overall.
We're also really interested in finding out what your nominations for these categories are, so drop us a note in the comments. And while you're there, don't forget to hit subscribe and that little bell button so you can get notified when we post new content.
It's been a great year for the channel. We really appreciate your support, and we cannot wait to keep suggesting games for you in 2023.
So without further ado, let's get into it. Will one of these games be the perfect game for you? Let's find out, shall we? Alright, the first category that we're going to be talking about today is the top table hogger, which we've come to define as the game that we can't keep off of our table. I actually played a lot of games multiple times this year, which I was pretty proud of myself for, but the game that got to my table the most and is therefore my top table hogger was Sobek 2 Players. Now, the interesting thing about Sobek 2 Players is that I was introduced to the game in its digital form, so I really started playing this game first on Board Game Arena, and I quickly realized that not only did I really enjoy the game, but also you could kind of get a live game of it in about 15 minutes or less.
Whoa, okay, wow, that's fast.
I really appreciated how quick it was, and once you start to get the strategy down and start to see these strategies develop over multiple games, you know, I feel like I really have a good sense of what I want to go for when I start playing the game, which is one of the reasons why it has gotten to the table so much. Now, I also have a physical implementation, which I've played significantly less than the online implementation, but it is far and away my most played game of the year, and it is quickly climbing up the rankings of my favorite two-player games of all time.
And I will definitely attest to the fact that you played it more online, because I still have yet to play Sobek 2 Players, but there's something to be said for all that Board Game Arena time.
Yeah, so it's my top table hogger, but perhaps it is it's a digital table hogger this year. But, you know, it's 2022.
Still counts.
Still counts. Anyways, what was your top table hogger for this year?
My top table hogger, if you know me, you know I'm a party game lover, and we have a lot of game nights, you know, with friends coming over. And what first popped into my mind is So Clover, which is a great word guessing game. We've talked about it, or really Alex has talked about it a lot on the channel. It is wonderful. It's really easy to teach. It takes about maybe, I don't know, 15-20 minutes to play, and you can just keep playing over and over again. It's one of those games that feels like it never gets old. I mean, if you're looking for something that's kind of like a Codenames replacement, or something that's just a fresh take on something like Codenames, then I think it's a really great game. So I've loved playing that. It's been great with family, friends, truly like all ages and all sorts of different friend groups have really enjoyed it. So it's a really universal game, and I think I find myself recommending or wanting to play it whenever we have friends or even people who are new to hanging out with us over.
Yeah, and you don't have to be shy. It is better than Codenames. I have said that, and I will stand by that on this channel. It's better than Codenames. I love it as a party game. I always look forward to when we play it. If we have new gamers over to the house, or veteran gamers, you know, So Clover is a hit with any group that we've played it with. I feel like a good mark of a good party game is whether or not you have inside jokes after it's all said and done.
I love inside jokes. Love to be a part of one someday.
Yeah. That's very true.
And So Clover is the quintessential inside joke maker, so couldn't recommend it more highly. So if you're interested in the two games that we played most this year, then might we suggest Sobek 2 Players?
And So Clover. All right, so the next category that we have is the top game off the back of the shelf, which is a category devoted to a game that we haven't played in a while that we sort of rediscovered a new joy for this year.
There were a lot of games, especially because of Board Game Arena, but also that we, managed to dust off in our own collection that we played this year. So a lot of nominations for this category, but we had to narrow it down to 2. So Liz, what was your top game off the back of the shelf this year?
Well, we talked about Codenames in the last category, and my top game off the back of the shelf this year is by the same designer of Codenames, a game called Pictomania. And it is similarly, you know me through and through, party game lover. It is a party game that involves drawing and guessing, similar to Pictionary, but it gets increasingly more difficult. You're drawing very abstract concepts by the end of it. Speaking of that inside joke situation, you definitely will end up with inside jokes by the end of this game because you are having to draw things such as emptiness, vertebrates.
Now, how can you not get that?
In what universe is that a present?
It's not a present, it's the present.
You start off with person, places, and things, simple nouns that you have to draw, but you end up at the end of it having to draw something like prophecy or darkness or marketing.
It gets progressively harder as the game goes on. It starts to get a bit chaotic. It's really fun. You're just doing your best to try to draw and then quickly guess everyone else's. You want to be the first person to put in your guesses. So it has that sort of like fun, time-sensitive element to it, as well as just like some creativity and, laughter, not taking things too seriously. So that was mine. It came out over 10 years ago, and so it was really fun. I mean, I think it really still holds up after 10 plus years. So definitely a great one. Go check it out if you haven't already played it. So, Alex, what was your top game off the back of the shelf this year?
I would say the top game that I had a bit of a renaissance with this year was Castles of Burgundy. Castles of Burgundy has always been one of my more favorite games, but it's always had a tough time kind of getting to the table because the theme isn't really one that gets people up in the morning, which I'll admit, and usually I'm a guy that's like super into thematic games, so it's a bit of a cognitive dissonance that I even enjoy Castles of Burgundy in the first place. But I love the tile placement puzzle. I love the drafting and the dice mitigation and just the strategizing throughout the game. I just think the gameplay in that one is just one of the most solid games of all time. It's funny, it actually came out in the same year as Pictomania, 2011. So I guess 2011 is our golden year this year that we're going back to. We just started dating in 2011, so it was a pretty good year.
Oh yeah, true.
Pretty good year.
True.
But yeah, Castles in Burgundy is just a solid game all the way through. Hasn't gotten to the table much. But this year, obviously, they've got a digital implementation on Board Game Arena, and I have hit those tables pretty hard this year. So played a lot of Castles of Burgundy online, even got it out to the table a couple times. I think I did coerce a few people to play it with me on my birthday, so I was just reminded of how solid of a game that is. I'm just waiting for another game to come up and be like, this is Castles of Burgundy, but better. Mm-hmm. And I just haven't found that.
Yeah.
So I predict that there's going to be plenty more of Castles of Burgundy in 2023.
So if you're interested in the games that we dusted off the back of our shelf this year, then might we suggest Pictomania
and the Castles of Burgundy. Alright, so the next category is one of my favorites. It's the top game that we'd like to take on a second date. And what that means is that it's a game that we played for the first time this year and really enjoyed, but didn't really get to know very well. So we want to take it on a second date in 2023, play it a few more times, and hopefully really get into it. So anyways, the game that I played this year that I really want to take on a second date next year is 10 Penny Parks. 10 Penny Parks is a great polyomino game that came out. I got to demo it at Gen Con, and I recently got a copy of it. I played it for the first time and I really enjoyed it, but I still have only played it that one time. So it's definitely one of those games. It's got a great polyomino puzzle, but it's really interesting because you're not trying to nest the polyominoes, you're actually trying to keep them from being adjacent to one another. So it's a totally different type of spatial puzzle than a typical polyomino game. It was quite easy to learn, the pacing was really good, and the game got over pretty quickly, and that's not to even mention the components are like super nice. So Thunderworks did a great job on this game. Really enjoyed my first play of it, and I really want to take that one on a second date next year, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure. Of course. Any board game date is okay by me.
Someone has a second date tonight.
Well, I guess maybe I'll take you on the board game date with you.
I would like to be.
It'll be a double date.
Yeah.
It'll be a double date. With what game? What game is it going to be the double date with?
We'll be double dating with the game Decorum, which we've gotten a chance to play, I think, twice this year, but loved it so much. And it's just so delightful. It is a game about home decor and roommates and trying to work through sort of passive-aggressive communication because you are not allowed to say anything other than I love it or I hate it when people are making these decisions within the house. And it's a great just meta logic puzzle type game. So if you like sort of deduction and cooperative, it's a cooperative game, which I love. I think we both love just getting to sort of work together with people. And it's frustrating at times, but also once you get to that final solution and everyone in the house is happy, it's just so wonderful. It's great. They have different campaigns for 2 players or 3 or 4 players. We still have yet to play the 2-player version, but I think that it would be a great opportunity, you know, to kind of get closer to one another and, you know, have a little date night.
I totally agree. I think Decorum is a fantastic game, but we did not play it nearly enough based on how good it was. One of the things I really enjoy about it is it's a cooperative game that does not suffer from a quarterbacking issue because there's hidden information and each person knows something that nobody else knows. So because of that, you're really in charge of like what you do and trying to figure out what everybody else does instead of trying to boss people around the table like, you know, you might do in Pandemic or something like that. So
that's a really good point. It does feel very like equal between all of the players. So it's a nice take on a cooperative game.
So anyways, if you're interested in some games that we would like to play a little bit more next year, then might we suggest Tenpenny Parks
and Decorum. All right, continuing on, our next category is the best new game in our collection this year.
It's been a pretty big year for board games. The channel has grown pretty significantly since the beginning of the year. I started doing it full time in September, and I've seen some really great support from a lot of really awesome publishers. So we've had a lot of new games come in this year, and it should be really interesting. I'm interested to see what you pick.
Well, this year, my top new game is a really, really unique game that we have been playing called In the Palm of Your Hand, which I know you've talked about before on the channel, but it's a wonderful abstract art party game. So kind of similar to Dixit or Mysterium if you played those, but instead of using words to get people to guess the right picture, you are using objects and placing them in someone's hand with their eyes closed. So you're sort of miming out a clue for the person. It's a totally new take on just a way to do a game. I mean, using the sense of touch I thought was really unique and really interesting. And the parts that it comes with are really fun and just, you know, I've never played anything like it. With the pieces that you have to choose from, you've got a wide variety of different objects. You've got things like a shoelace and Velcro and wooden blocks and all sorts of different textures and shapes that you can use to sort of mime what's going on someone's hand. So I've really loved it every time we've played, and yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, In the Palm of Your Hand is a game that totally took me by surprise this year. I only kind of like those abstract art party games. We've had this discussion before. But In the Palm of Your Hand feels so different. I just really love the novelty of it. I feel like every time I introduce it to somebody, they're like, there is no way we're getting this mime.
I'm sorry, it's just not gonna happen.
Like, there's zero way I'll be able to, like, interpret this random image by doing it on your hand. And every single time that I've played it, people get one and they're like, oh my gosh, I can actually do this. And to see that kind of click in their eyes, I think is just a sign of a great game. Love the novelty of it. Love introducing it to new players. It's one of those games that is just kind of just weird enough that I would say, man, you really got to try this one. So super glad that you brought this one up.
Thanks. So Alex, what was your top new game for the year?
I would say that my top new game, it's not exactly a party game, but definitely a more lightweight one. It's a game called Spots. I kind of have an interesting relationship with Spots because I actually got a chance to playtest this game for John Perry, who is the designer. We got a little print and play version in its nascent form and got a chance to bring that to a game night. And it's just a quick little dice game about dogs, and you take these dice and you're trying to make the spots on the dogs and complete dog cards. And it's just a super cute game. I think it has just come out to retail like in November or something like that. So if it's around, you gotta pick this up. It's perfect for anyone who has dogs, anyone who thinks dogs are cute. Just a fantastic game. It's kind of like a push your luck dice game. It has these cute dog illustrations and these really awesome custom dice, and I just had a great time playing this game. And it was so light. I feel like it's gonna be the perfect one to introduce players who don't really play a lot of board games into the hobby, which is a type of game that I'm always looking for. So I hope it really blows up because it's one of my favorites of this year for sure.
About how long is the playtime on that one?
Generally, yeah, I don't think there's been a game that we've played that's been more than 30 minutes, and the rule set you can learn in 5, which is amazing. So
Yeah, that's
I just really loved this game, and I can't wait to play it even more, next year.
So if you're interested in checking out our top new games of the year, then might we suggest In the Palm of Your Hand?
And Spots. All right, we're at the last category, which is the one you've all been waiting for. It's our top overall game of the year, and this year it was a really tough one.
There were a lot of new games that came out this year. There were a lot of games that we played this year. It made the decision really hard as to what we were going to pick for top overall game, but we're excited to share what we've decided.
So anyways, my top overall game of the year is My Father's Work. I don't know if it's because I became a father over the last year and maybe that has changed me a little bit, but My Father's Work is just a fantastic game that I will talk about with anyone, really. One of the things that I really like about it is that it's a pretty long game that feels heavy, but actually the rule set is pretty simple. When it comes down to it, it's just a pretty straightforward worker placement game, but it's the mechanics and the characters and the drama and the narrative that surround it that make it so good. My Father's Work has a companion app that has really cool narrations and voiceovers, and it keeps track of all the decisions that you make throughout the game. I just think it's so fascinating to know that one scenario might have 9 different endings, depending on which decisions you make in every round.
Whoa, that's crazy.
It's got great components, it's got great production, the gameplay is really fun and super solid and not super difficult to pick up. And even though I talk about a lot of light to medium weight games on the channel, I am a bit of a sucker for a game that takes like 3 or 4 hours or something like that. So My Father's Work hit me right where I wanted it to. I was super impressed by this game this year, and that's why it takes my #1 top overall spot this year. I've enjoyed the plays that I've had with it, and I know that you've enjoyed your plays of your top overall game, which is...
Yeah, so my top overall game is a game called Phantom Inc. by The Resonym. We had a chance to playtest this earlier on this year and instantly became a hit, I think, in our friend group. And it's one of those games similarly that we've been able to introduce to a lot of different people, family, friends, coworkers, and it's just a really great time. Again, like with the inside jokes, it's a great opportunity for that. We also really love the sort of spooky theme to it.
Did somebody say spooky?
It has like a Ouija board type vibe. You're doing a seance and you're trying to communicate with a spirit. So it is a great game, especially around, Halloween. We've played it a lot. I think it's been really fun and a really solid sort of addition to our collection when it comes to games that you can play with a lot of people.
I also love about the theme that it's not overtly that theme, I would say. Like, the theme adds to it if you're into that, but for someone like my mom who is not into that theme at all, we still played it with her and she still really enjoyed it. So it's definitely like, it helps you understand the mechanics a little bit, but it's not like in your face about it.
True.
And it just has some really beautiful production.
Beautifully designed, great components, great art.
And I'll also say, I want to give a big shout out to The Resonym. It was one of the first Kickstarter previews I ever got to do. When I first started this channel, they took a chance on me, and also the folks at The Resonym are just the nicest people ever. So give a shout out to them. I'm so glad to see that this game is like starting to blow up now, and I am just super thankful to them for all the ways that they've supported the channel in the last year or so. So that's not why it's on the list. It's on the list because it's a good game. I promise. Right?
Yes.
I didn't pick it, right? It wasn't me. Unbiased Liz
I love it.
chose Phantom Inc. But
Correct.
we love Phantom Inc. in this household. One of our favorites. Top party games that we've played this year, and
Can't wait to play it more next year.
can't wait to play it more next year, absolutely. So if you're interested in playing the 2 games that we thought were the best games that we played all year, then might we suggest My Father's Work?
And Phantom Inc.
Thanks for sticking around for the list of our favorite games that we played this year.
We'd love to hear what your favorite games were of the year, whether they fall into these categories or not. So please drop them below in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.
It's been a fantastic year for the channel, and I promise you, Might I Suggest a Game is just getting started, so we can't wait to bring you some more awesome board game content in 2023.
Thank you to everyone who has supported us this far.
Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so we can keep growing this channel and keep helping you find your perfect board game. Once again, this has been a Might I Suggest a Game production, and I'm Alex.
And I'm Liz.
Your board game sommeliers, signing off.